Good evening, and thank you for coming tonight to the JCC. We know that you're all busy, so thank you for taking the time to come tonight. I'd like to share with you something very interesting that I heard many years ago. We know the story with Chana v'Shiva Baneha. Chana and her 7 sons. What's the story with Chana? She comes into the Mishkan, and Eli HaKohen sees her. Eli HaKohen sees Chana, and the pasuk tells us, "Rak sefaseh anois v'koila lo yishama." She was speaking, but you could not hear her voice. Vayachshiveha Eli l'shekaira. In those days, people did not speak, or people did not daven Shemona Esrei quietly. So whenever one spoke, or whenever one davened, everything was done loud. Now, Chana comes in, she's a tznuah, so she's davening, and she's crying, but she's davening quietly. And because in those days people did not daven quietly, Eli HaKohen sees a woman crying, talking to herself. Vayachshiveha Eli l'shekaira. Eli HaKohen thinks that she's drunk. So Eli HaKohen approaches her and says to Chana, Ad mosai teshakrin. How much longer are you going to be drunk? Where's the kavod HaTorah of coming into the Mishkan and coming in as a drunk person? Vatan Chana vatoimer. So Chana responds to Eli HaKohen and says, Isha kshas ruach anochi. I am a God-fearing woman, ve'es Elokim yirei, and I fear Hashem. So Eli HaKohen turns to Chana after he sees that she is a sincere woman who's coming crying for what she's asking of Hashem. So Eli HaKohen responds to her. What does he say? Lech l'shalom, go in peace, v'yemalei Hashem mishaloisayich, and Hashem will answer your prayer. The Heilige Sfas Emes asks the following question. He says, I don't understand. Chana walks into the Mishkan, Eli HaKohen takes a look at her, sees her, assesses her, and tells her, you're drunk. As soon as she says, I'm a God-fearing woman, what does he tell her? He says, Leich l'shalom, go home, Hashem answered you. So the Sfas Emes says, 1 minute, a minute ago you're drunk, and a minute later Hashem answered you, go home? Where's that? There's like a little gap over here. Shouldn't there be a process? And the Sfas Emes says we can understand this with the story that happened of 2 Hasidim, of Reb Simcha Binim of Pshisch. There were 2 Hasidim, we'll call them Moshe and Yaakov. Moshe was the fellow who would do the work inside warehousing textiles, putting the orders together. And then Yaakov would be the one who would go to the markets, make the connections, pay the money, make the purchase orders, bring in the sales. And they worked together for 25 years. One day, Yaakov, the outside person, thinks to himself, this is not fair. Why am I the person who goes in the cold? I risk my life because when I go from town to town, sometimes I put myself at harm's risk. There are people that are the listimizim, the robbers. And it's not fair. I make the connection, I do the sales, I lay out the money, I bring in the orders, and he's sitting on a beautiful leather chair telling people what to do. How is that a 50-50 partnership? It's really bugging him, and over time it bugs him even more and more, and he decides he cannot bring this up to his partner because his partner will never accept his proposal of changing it to a 70-30 partnership. So he decides, you know what I'll do? I'll do what's fair, but I won't necessarily tell my partner. He decides the next time that he's going to be going from his office to Makiv, which is the market. He's going to come a day late back to his office. He's going to dirty himself up and put a couple of bullet holes in his vest. And he's going to explain to Moshe how he was robbed. And he was so lucky that he was able to survive. And he was also able to kind of take his money and put part here and part under the carriage. So even though they stole part of his money, he didn't lose all of his money. And like this, he'll get that extra 20% that he deserves. And so, the next time he leaves on a Monday morning, he says, Moshe, I'm going to be going to Makov now to where we do business. I look forward to seeing you in a few days' time. He wishes him well. And Yaakov does just that. He dirties himself up. He makes a couple of holes. He bangs himself up a little bit, gets some scratches, comes back. And Moshe takes a look at him and he says, Yaakov, what happened to you? And he says, don't ask. I barely survived. I was going from our office to the market, and it took about a day's worth of journey. And on the way, I got stopped. And they beat me up, and they wanted to kill me. And they wanted to rob me. I told them, please take my money. But thank Baruch Hashem, instead of having all my money in one place, I had part of it with me, part of it under the carriage, part of it with the wagon driver. So although 20% of our net worth was taken away, I still have the rest of it. And Baruch Hashem, as you see, I made it back alive. At first, Moshe is extremely happy. His partner's here, part of the money is here. Business will go on, maybe not as usual, but it will go on. But a day passes, and a few days pass, and Moshe feels that Yaakov is just too happy for someone who lost 20% of his net worth. And it bothers him, and he calls his partner and he says, are you sure the story is exactly what you told me? And Yaakov turns to him and he says, I don't understand. We're both Hasidim of the Rebbe of Rabbinim of Pshisk. We are both partners for 25 years. How do you not trust me? Okay. But another few days pass. And Moshe sees that Yaakov bought a mink coat for his wife. He's also too happy for someone who just lost 20% of his net worth. And he feels something is off. And once again he approaches his partner. And he says, Yaakov, are you sure that the story that you're telling me is exactly the way it happened? Are you missing any detail? Because something is irking me. And once again Yaakov turns to him and says, I don't understand why you're asking the same question again. We're partners for 25 years. We're Hasidim of the same Rebbe. We live well. I always do what I do. Why are you questioning me? And as time passes, of course, because it wasn't necessarily the truth, it continues to bother him. So he turns to his partner, Yaakov, and he says, Yaakov, I'll tell you the truth. I can't get past it. I want to ask you a favor. We're going to be going to the Rebbe for Rosh Hashanah. When we go to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe asks us how we're doing and about business, please let me bring it up, and I promise you, if the Rebbe says leave it alone, I will never, ever bring it up again, and I will be at peace with it. Okay. So Moshe and Yaakov go to travel to Pshisk to the Rebbe for Rosh Hashanah. And the Rebbe greets them so warmly because they've been coming for 25 years straight together. And the Rebbe says, how are you? How's the family? And of course, one thing leads to the next, and the Rebbe says, how's Parnasa? How's business? And of course, they say, Baruch Hashem, everything is well. And then Moshe says, Rebbe, there's something that I'd like to discuss with you. And he says, Yaakov tells us that, he had a robbery, but I'm not feeling it. Plus, he's too happy for someone who lost so much. And, I've seen some changes in his life that just lead me to believe that he has extra cash under his mattress. And the Rebbe turns to Yaakov and says, Yaakov, what do you say? And Yaakov says, Rebbe, I don't understand how he can accuse me. We're partners for 25 years. We're Hasidim of the Rebbe. I told him that I didn't steal the money. And the Rebbe says, so tell me more about the story. And he starts to cry, Yaakov, and he says, Rebbe, don't ask. I was going from our office to Makov, where the market was, and it was a day's journey. And as I was going, I got stopped on the way, and they beat me up, and they wanted to kill me. I thought I would never see my family again. And then they said, we'll let you go if you give us the money. And Baruch Hashem, I was able to put the money here and there, and with the driver and under the carriage. And they stole money, but they only sold 20% of our net worth. And he starts to cry, and he says, Baruch Hashem, I thought I lost it all. I thought my life was coming to an end. And the Rebbe says, tell me the story again. And he repeats it again, and he cries. And the Rebbe turns to him and says, Ganef, geb tzirik the geld. Ganef, return the money. You're a ganef. You can't take other people's money, even if part of it belongs to you. And he cries again, Yaakov, and he says, Rebbe, I don't understand how you can accuse me. I'm an Erlich Yid. I'm a partner. I'm a chassid. And the Rebbe listens to his story and is crying and says, Ganef, geb tzedik de geld. Return the money. You can't just take money that you think belongs to you. And knowing that the Rebbe perhaps has Ruach HaKodesh or knows better, Yaakov breaks down and says, Rebbe, it's true. I did take the money, but it does belong to me, so I did not steal it. I totally have the right to keep this money because I'm the one who does the work. He sits in a leather chair. He tells people what to do. He packs the orders. But I make the connection. I purchase the material. I put my life on the line. I'm the one driving the majority of what happens in our business. So the Rebbe says, you can't just do that. You have to return the money. And if you do have an issue, you go to a Rav. You figure it out. You don't just make decisions on your own. This is considered robbing your partner. And the Rebbe turns to the two Hasidim and he says, don't think this is Ruach HaKodesh. This is not Ruach HaKodesh. I'll tell you what it is. When a person hurts and he speaks to a Rebbe, to a friend, to a parent, we hurt also. If something bothers you, Shlomo HaMelech says, if something bothers you, speak to somebody else and speak it through, because a person will feel your pain. Imi anochi b'tzara. But I see you're crying and you're crying and you're crying and I feel nothing. I knew that you were lying. So the Sfas Emes said, the same thing happened by Eli HaKohen. Chana comes into the Mishkan, she's crying. He takes a look at her and he's like, people don't daven quietly. So if he sees that she's crying, she's speaking softly and quietly, and he doesn't feel anything. He says, if I don't feel anything and I'm Eli HaKohen, that means you're drunk. But once he spoke with her, and once she said, Isha kshas ruach anaychi, I am a God-fearing woman, and yes, I am a sincere woman, and I am an Eved Hashem, and it is really hurting me. Eli HaKohen thinks, he says, 1 minute, the lady is davening, I'm not feeling anything, how can that be? So he turns to Chana and he says, if I'm not feeling anything, it must be that Hashem helped you already, and you don't even have a problem anymore. So that's why he told her right away, Leich l'shalom v'yamalei Hashem mishalosach. You don't have a problem anymore. Hashem helped you already. Go home. And that is a powerful, powerful lesson. When a person comes to you, you have to feel his pain. When you have a problem, when something hurts you, know that you could speak to your friend, your Rebbe, your Rav, and they will feel your pain also. And may we merit to help each other and to feel each other's pain and sadness, and of course rejoice in everyone's happiness when they are happy. And together we will merit Mashiach in our times. Thank you for coming and thank you for listening.